My name's Barry McManus. I'm the president and owner of Klein Products. I'm also a husband to an amazing wife. I'm a father to 3 fantastic young sons. I have 2 beautiful daughter-in-laws, and now I have 3 adorable grandkids. I'm also a former foster child. I was a foster child, but I did start my life with a biological family. I had a mom and a dad, an older sister, and an older brother. Like many families, we had our troubles, but despite them, I thought I had a pretty normal life. It was all I knew. One day when I was probably 8 years old, my dad invited me to walk with him outside to the car parked in the driveway. I remember seeing this bar stretched across the back seat of the car, and all his clothes were hanging on this bar. It looked like it was everything that he owned. That day, he told me he had come time for him to leave. He said he had to travel to Colorado to take a new job that would ultimately help our family. And he would come back for the rest of us soon. He hugged me, he told me he loved me, he got in his car and drove off. And that was the last time I ever saw him. Shortly after my dad left, my mom became ill. She was in and out of hospitals. Each time she had to stay overnight or longer in the hospital, I would stay with my best friend's family. During one visit to the hospital, for some reason, I went to stay with a new family. Didn't really know them, but they were the family of one of my brother's friends, the Klein family. Dorothy and Dick Klein were the parents' names. Dorothy picked me up from school one day and took me to the local drugstore, and there she bought me a kite. It was one of those kites that was rolled up around these 2 wooden sticks. These sticks, you'd twist the cross into a backbone like a skeleton, and then you'd wrap the kite paper material over these sticks. Then you'd tie a tail onto the back end. Then you'd grab 3 or 4 spools of kite string and prepare for takeoff. The Kleins lived on a hillside, and this day was super windy. All I had to do was basically sit there and let the kite go, and the wind took the rest. It took off. It was so easy. I think I got all 4 spools of string on this flight. It was way, way out there. I could barely see it. Soon after, I got a shout out from Dorothy to come back into the house. As I reeled in the kite, the string broke, and suddenly the kite was gone. It flew away and disappeared into the sky. Dorothy shouted out again, so I gathered up the string that I could, and I went into the house. Once inside, I saw Dorothy, my older brother Ron, and a family friend's father were all sitting in the room. That was the moment the news was delivered to me that my mom had passed away. At that moment, my life changed forever. And just like that, I became an orphan and a foster child. I was 10 years old at the time. I remember always looking forward to her being well and us having our family together again. I really had no idea she was going to die. I was stunned and totally unprepared for the news. And suddenly, before grief set in, I couldn't stop thinking, what would happen next? Where would I go? What would I do? What would tomorrow bring? Even though Dick and Dorothy already had 4 siblings of their own, Dorothy came to me and promised me, Barry, we got you. We're going to take care of you. And she did. Dorothy and Dick kept that promise. In fact, the entire Klein family did. And they took me in, and from that day forward, they took care of me and accepted me into their family. I went from being the unluckiest kid in school to the luckiest kid overnight. A few years went by, so I'm about 12 years old, and one evening, Dorothy and Dick invited me into their room for a talk. They had some news to share. It was rumored that my dad had returned and was going to come for me. It was an emotional talk, one where both Dorothy and Dick wanted me to know they loved me very much, considered me part of their family. They asked me that day if it would be okay if they adopted me. And I said no. You see, by this time, I was 12, I was a pretty good student, popular in school, pretty good athlete, was starting to get my life established. I felt lucky and fortunate to be considered normal and not labeled, and I just wanted to be normal. I did not want any special attention. I asked him if we could just leave it the same, and they said yes, and they never asked again. We went on to live an extraordinary life. They raised me in their family. They took good care of me. They gave me the opportunity for a life I envisioned for myself. There were challenges and struggles, but we pushed through. We fell in love, and Dorothy's and my relationship continued to grow stronger and stronger. I knew she loved me, and I loved her back. Most people who knew us would agree that ours was as strong as a relationship as with any of her own kids, if not stronger. Dorothy Klein really saved my life. Dorothy and Dick's oldest son, Richard, was also special. He treated me so well. He always included me, taught me things, and he really became somebody I looked up to. He always made me feel like I was his little brother. And as I got older, he became not just an older brother, but my best friend as well. Richard was also very close to Dorothy. They had a very strong bond. In 1991, Dorothy became ill, and now as a young adult in my early 30s, I understood cancer much better than when I was 10. Dorothy lost her battle with breast cancer. She passed away July 26, 1992. It was a very difficult time for me and for Richard too. By now, Richard and I worked together. We were together almost every day, all day. We were working very long hours. On October 24th, 1992, just 3 months after Dorothy died, after working 5 straight days with little sleep, Richard fell asleep at the wheel, crossed the center divider on a Texas country highway, and was killed in a head-on collision. In California at the time, I got the call early in the morning, and the next day, immediately, I flew to Texas, along with Dick, to take care of Richard, close his business, and take care of his estate. My relationship with Dick was good, but distant. Much different than it was with Dorothy. He was tough. He was strict and all business. With Dick, I always knew I was a guest in the house. I knew he cared for me, but he just had a hard time showing it. That time we spent in Texas taking care of Richard, something happened. We connected, and at that moment, our relationship grew stronger rapidly. We became tight, respected father and son relationship, and business partners. We went on and built our business together. He mentored me, coached me, shared his experiences, and inspired me. He taught me how to work and the value of hard work. He was the hardest working man I've ever known. Soon he began to phase out of business and finally retired. But he still mentored me, even when he retired. We had Thursday morning meetings where he wanted to catch up. Every Thursday he would show up and want to talk. It was hard for me as I was so busy. One Thursday morning, he brought unfortunate, sad news. He told me he was going to die. The doctor gave him 3 months to get his affairs in order. He was sick with cancer. He ended up living 3 years. Dick and I happened to share an attorney for our personal business and estate affairs. One day, Jerry, our attorney, calls me. He says, "You know, Barry, I've been working with you. I've been working with Dick. I know you both so well. And I'm just wondering why in the world you never were adopted." I told him a story about the meeting I had with Dick and Dorothy when I was 12. And he asked, "Well, what about now? Would you like to be adopted?" This time, I said yes. He said, "Great, give me a minute. I need to make a call. I'll call you right back." 10 minutes later, my phone rings, and it's Dick, and he was bawling. And he tells me, "I've wanted to adopt you every day since the day when you were 12. The next week, we were at the courthouse, and I was adopted at 48 years old. Looking back and reflecting, I became an adult at 12 years old, and then I became a kid again at 48. Dick died later that year after battling kidney cancer for almost 4 years. I became an orphan at 10 years old. I was a kid that needed help. I was a lucky one, as I received that help. Thanks to the Klein family, a great friend group, and many other supporters along the way, I was able to not only survive my youth, but prosper into adulthood. I am forever grateful. And now I have the passion of my own to help our youth. That's how I found Orangewood. Right now, at this very moment in time, there are youth in our neighborhood, not even a mile from where you sit right now, due to no fault of their own, do not know where their next meal is coming from or where their next pair of shoes might be coming from. Some have no home, no parents. They may be abused, trafficked, or neglected. They are lonely and worried about their future. These young people may struggle to have a chance at a productive life in society without some kind of help. The Orangewood Foundation gives them that help and hope and something to look forward to. Your donations and other support you may offer will go a long way in providing services that support these youth who need it most and give them the hope for the opportunity at a life they envision for themselves. Lastly, in all my efforts in the last few years with Orangewood and other organizations, finding ways to help within the community, I have found that everyone, really 100% of the people that I talk to, want to help other humans. They just don't know how. We can show you how. Please join us and help our youth.